Hi, this is Jay from JWINK Reviews. Today I'm reviewing the Netgear Nighthawk X6S Triband Wi-Fi range extender. Now included with the extender is the power supply, which I've already got plugged in, and a couple basic instruction manuals that kind of give the basic overview of how to set this thing up. Now I got this originally after seeing it go on sale during a Cyber Monday deal for around 159 bucks, which I thought was a decent deal for the extender. As originally, the original price, I think as far as it being an extender, is way too high. When this first came out, it was $299. I think the regular price now is $279, which I think is way too much for this just being an extender. That's cost more than a lot of high-end routers. So if you could catch this on a deal for $200 or less, then it's a pretty good deal for the extender. Like I said, I got mine for $159. If you can find a deal like that, then if you need an extender, it'd be the way to go. But for regular price, which is probably my biggest complaint, this extender is too much. Now, as I said, it includes the instructions here, which I think are rather basic. But once you figure out, how to get it going, the instructions are fairly simple. For me, the biggest issue I had is I have a Netgear R7000 Nighthawk router, and I had to figure out how to activate the WPS on it, which this extender has, which I'll show you in the back in a second. There's no button for the R7000, which the instructions here, of course, keep referencing push the button, which you have to do it actually in the web page setup of the router. So once I figured that out, the connection with the extender is pretty quick and easy. Now, when the extender is first powered on, all these lights up here flash. It does take a minute or two for this thing to boot up, which I think is a little slow, but it's doing whatever I guess it's doing to get itself going and connected. But if you first power it on, even when you're first setting it up, it does take a couple minutes for that to quit flashing before you can actually get the extender to start pairing up. The WPS pairing process is fairly easy. So if you have a router that has that ability, that's the way to go because it's pretty quick and easy. You basically push the button, which I'll show here on the back. You push this WPS button on the back, and it starts flashing. And then, at least for my router, my R7000, you push the button on the web page in the setup, and it starts activating. It takes a minute or so to pair up. Initially, it pairs up with the 2.4. You have to hit this WPS button a second time if you have a 5 gigahertz router to get it to pair up. But once that happens, as you can see, you'll have all these lit up. You'll have the signal strength. I guess they call that the maximum speed or something like that. 5 gigahertz, the 2.4 gigahertz, and then the pairing connection and the WPS is lit up as well. There's also a light for the network and other things on here as well. But again, pairing with the WPS takes a minute for between the two each. But once that's done, it's pretty quick and easy. Like if you don't have WPS on your router, you can use an installation assistant program that Netgear. I didn't try that, but I mean, if it's anything like the one for the R7000, it's not too difficult to deal with as well either. Now, once you get this connected and paired up with the WPS, you log into the wireless extender web page to complete the setup. Now, the immediate thing, at least for my extender, is that there was an update for the extender available. The version that I updated to was 1.0098, which is the latest as of today of this review when I initially did the setup. Now, I do recommend that you update, if there is an update available, immediately before doing any of the setup. You'll have less problems with that extender this way. With my experience in dealing with the Netgear products and most newer router products for all brands these days, the initial firmwares that's sent out on these things are a bit buggy. And if you can get an update that patches some of the bugs, it greatly makes life a lot easier. And the one thing I like about Netgear is they do work really hard at patching and updating the firmware for their devices. I've had my R7000 probably three years now, and they're still updating and patching and adding new features and fixing bugs and security and that kind of thing to this router today, even today. So they do work at getting updates out there, and it looks like they're doing that for this extender as well. The firmware update works pretty quickly. It was fairly smooth, although for some reason there was a glitch that I could not access this extenders page, which is that www.mywifiextension.net or something, whatever that is that it has. And I instead had to use the actual extender's IP address to log into the setup. Now, whether that's a quirk with the firmware, I assume it is. I don't know, and probably a bug that needs to be fixed, but you may have that issue. But if you do have that issue, just log in using the IP address for the extender. And if you don't know how to find that, go into your router's attached devices, scroll down till you see the extender, and you'll find the IP address there. Once in the extender setup page, setup is pretty easy. It walks you through everything step by step. It's easy to understand. The extender connected to my router with no issues. Again, it shows in the attached device section. For me, it shows 5G wireless EX8000 and then the IP address. So no issues with that as far as connecting to my R7000. Of course, being Netgear to Netgear, that probably makes life a little easier than if you were using other routers. The one thing I like about the extender over similar extending devices is that it's capable of using the same signal and network name as the router without having multiple networks. Now, you can set it up to have multiple networks if you want, but if you want a seamless network throughout wherever the area you're trying to have, you have that option with this, and it creates just one. So I have just one wireless network set for the 2.4 gigahertz band and the 5 gigahertz band, which makes life simpler. If you have devices that are already connected to those networks, once you put this extender in place, there's nothing you got to do. They continue to work. They don't have to reconnect to the extender if you're in an area where it needs, you need additional boosting of the signal. The only real complaint other than price I have with this, or at least regular price I have of this, is I don't really like how these lights are set up. They're white LED lights, and on the front of the extender, they kind of blend into each other, so to me it's a little hard to see the way they reflect in here upon each other, of what's activated and what's not. Like, if you look closely, you can see this, like, I assume that's the wired network plugs on the back, or maybe even the USB. It almost looks like it's lit up. It's not. I've got nothing plugged in there. But the way that reflects is it kind of looks like it does. I kind of wish they would have done that a little bit better, make the lights a little bit more distinct and a little bit easier to see, combined with the angle it being on the side of the extender as opposed to the top. It's just a little bit hard to see, in my opinion. The other thing is this extender is pretty big. It measures about 9 inches by 6.57 inches wide, about 2 inches deep. So it has a narrow vertical footprint, but it does take a bit of space otherwise wherever you put it. Typical of most high-end routers, though. So as long as you have the space for it, probably won't be a big deal standing vertically as it is, but it does take a little bit of space. On the back here, in addition to the WPS button, connecting button, there's 4 additional Ethernet ports, which are pretty cool. A USB port for connecting like a hard drive, the power button, the power plug, and then a reset. I like the fact that it has some additional ports, wired ports, so you can make some devices wired if you really want to do that. In my instance, it's not probably practical for me to do because I have this in a basement, which is where I have some spotty signals at time. My router is on the top floor of a 2-story house. That's 2 stories plus the basement that the signal has to get down to reach devices down here. So that's the reason I have it here, to boost that signal for the devices I have in the basement and outside in the back, which I also sometimes get a spotty signal. One thing to mention in addition to that is the USB port I find to be a bit flaky, but I find that to be a bit flaky with the R7000 as well. It's gotten better. They've worked out the bugs with that a little bit. But, you know, I personally have never found the USB port for hard drives for the router to work as well as a dedicated NAS server. So keep that in mind. It works okay, but not as well as a NAS server. So keep that in mind. Now, for me, I have a variety of devices here in the household: TVs, tablets, you know, PS3, PS4, Blu-ray players, computers, phones. Everything these days seems to connect to the network. I have all those and probably more here. I have one of the biggest issues I had here with my router, the way it was with my Nordic Track elliptical and treadmill that is has like a iPad type of tablet device built into it, and I would get an okay signal, but disconnects quite frequently, and sometimes a lot of stuttering on the videos when you're watching videos while you're exercising. So I got that to kind of avoid that problem here. And I'll show you real quick the signal with the treadmill. And as you can see here on the treadmill, I've now got an excellent signal, whereas before I would tend to get a fair to good strength signal with frequent disconnects and or stuttering with the video. So I want to show an example of my tablet running through the extender here in the basement. Again, normally down here I would get, you know, fair to good signal, especially in the area where the treadmill is. And also I get such a good strong signal, I can get the same signal out in the yard, which is good too. So once I got the extender connected and running, I've got it down here in the basement, as you can see. The instructions now themselves recommend putting it halfway between the router and the areas of poor signal. In my case, I would say I've got it probably further than that, probably 70% instead of more like half and half. I've probably got it further away from the router than I do the poor signal. But mainly because I've got a good indication of a strong signal here, even where it's at. And it seems to be working with no issues. So I've got excellent full signal on my exercise machines, on devices now, even out in the yard. There's been no disconnects so far, no video stutter. Even out in the farthest reaches on my yard, where I would normally get a fairly good signal, I've got an excellent signal now with this extender. As far as I'm concerned, it's a big improvement so far. The device has worked as it's supposed to. If you need something to, strengthen your router signal, then this does the job. I also like the fact that this extender is future-proof. It's designed to work with new routers as well. So when the time comes and I'm going to replace my R7000, I'm going to have an extender that's going to work for that as well. Netgear, as well as other companies, they tend to work out the bugs as they go along. So I'm sure there'll be, issues pop up from time to time that hopefully they'll fix. But I mean, overall, I'm fairly satisfied. The device has an easy setup. The WS pairing works quick. It's a Triband extender. It's got good network speed. Of course, that's dependent upon your router. It has one network ability, which is great as well. It greatly extends the range. It's firmware upgradable. It's future-proof. There's no interruption in the connected devices, no more dead spots. And again, it's got 4 hardwired ports as well. Now, the cons quickly, it's a bit expensive for an extender at regular price. I watch for it to go on sale. That's the better deal. There's, of course, the occasional firmware quirks that routers and these types of devices have. It has a fairly large footprint. The instructions are a bit basic and may not necessarily apply to your router. The white indicator lights here are a bit hard to see and determine which is on. And the US hard drive connection, as they are known to be, are a bit flaky with Netgear routers and extenders. Overall, this seems to work well with an excellent signal throughout the home and outside. Again, a bit pricey, and the issues with the LED lights kind of hurt it a little bit. But I give it 4 out of 5 stars.